State and Madison was a bustling corner of downtown Chicago at the turn of the century when Louis Sullivan designed the original 12-story building in 1898. Over the decades, his work has been added onto by Daniel Burnham and Halliburton Root. Other buildings were acquired and developed, resulting in what is now a 9-building, 1 million square foot complex.
So really, almost all the major architects at the time in Chicago have touched this building in some way, shape, or form.
Much of the design work was focused on the restoration of the cornice at the top of the building and the cast iron ornamentation along the first 2 floors.
The biggest challenge for the reconstruction of the cornice was trying to figure out what it really looked like. We only had some photographs, and they of course were all taken from street level, so they were quite blurry and fuzzy. The other piece that was very challenging was the cast iron storefront, which as you can see encompasses a large portion of the facade of the building, and that actually was simple in concept but difficult in execution. We just had to restore it, but in order to do that we had to completely remove the entire cast iron storefront, which consists of thousands of pieces. They all were taken off-site, carefully restored, dry fitted, reassembled in a shop, and then brought out and reassembled on-site.
Structural issues had to be addressed right away.
We had to discover how the building was supported, what we could take away, and of course get permits for these.
Because the building was more than 100 years old, there were certainly surprises, including historic facades that had been covered up for years and secret rooms where original Sullivan drawings were stored.
You couldn't really tell how much asbestos was in the walls until you opened them up, because all the piping and a lot of the elbows, they were all asbestos. And then, of course, being the fact that these buildings were, built when they were, a lot of the paint was lead, and it was real easy to, to find stuff that was hidden in the walls. And we found a lot of little knick-knack bottles that was, people must have stored them somewhere and think they'll pick them up later on. And then when we open up the walls, we're finding bottles from like 1910 and 1920.
Carson Perry Scott was still operating in the lower levels of the building when Joseph Fried and Associates started renovation on the upper levels. The design objective was to reconfigure and modernize all floors so that they would be attractive and functional for office use as well as new retail tenants.
We had to shrink them, and then we had to make or produce a floor plate for office space.
That floor plate ranges, because the building, it's amalgamation over time of different buildings, it ranges to a floor plate that goes as high as 95,000 square feet. And it's not uniform in its shape or size, or in column bases, or even its level of configuration between as the floors came together across the building. So we had to look at what we could best take the floor plate, and the floor plate in some places are 40,000 feet and 15,000 feet at the tower.
Original entrances, lobbies, stairwells, and columns were also restored. The concerted effort of the city and Joseph Fried and Associates to restore and repurpose the landmark Sullivan Center was transformative for the neighborhood as well. And State Street is now a lively place again, just as it was 100 years ago.